Welcome back. Today we are going to continue with creating a game of Pong using both visual scripting and C# and comparing which one I think is better. So this is part 5 in the series, so go back and check the previous videos if you haven't already. The link to the playlist is in the description. This is quite a long series where I do comparison between visual scripting and C# at different levels, so be sure to check out the rest of them. Okay, today we are going to add in the scoring system and a heads-up display to display the score for player 1 and player 2. So first things first, let's add a user interface, and we do that by right-clicking in our hierarchy, UI, Canvas. So here's a quick explanation on how this works if you guys are not familiar with it. For your user interface, you have to add a canvas, and under that we typically add a panel, and that's for grouping things together. And if you want different sections of your user interface to have different colors, for example, then you can use panels as well. So I'm going to add a panel just for the top, and let's see how that works. So UI panel, and I'm going to resize this. So use your rect transform tool and drag that up to the top. Okay, that's great. Now here we want to anchor it to the top. Now anchoring, if your object that you're adding is closer to the top of the screen, then you want to anchor it to the top like that. And the reason for this is so that it works properly across different devices of different resolutions. And here, I'm not going to get into too much detail on that, because that's not really the purpose of this tutorial. And under panel, I'm going to add in a few text fields. So UI text, you see it as text and text mesh pro. I'm just going to use plain old text. I'm going to edit a label here, so or the text contents, and make that I'm just going to call this player 1 and display the score next to that. Let's increase the font size. Okay, so I think I'll display the player 1 score on the left hand side and player 2 on the right. So again, this is under the panel, and this time we can align it within this panel, this text field that we just added. So click on this anchor presets, and if you hold Alt and click, so I want to click it here to the middle left. That's the top corner, top left corner, middle left corner, top bottom. I want to add it to the middle left, and that will immediately move it and set the anchor point to the left. So using the transform tool or the move tool, I can just offset that a little bit. Choose a rect tool again and bring this in. Okay, that's good. I'm going to right click on panel, UI, and text again. Repeat the process. So actually, instead of having to repeat everything, I'm just going to go and duplicate that. Control D, W, move that to the right, and I'm going to set that to 0. Let's name these. So I'm going to call this score label P1. Even better, let's just call it player 1 score label, and this one I'll call it player 1 score text. Select both, duplicate that, and move it to the right. Okay, so what I'm going to do is anchor them both to the right, and select the text and move that to the right. So that's holding Alt and move that, and then I will line this up next to it. Okay, so this text field is too big. Let's choose the rect tool. Resize that. W, just offset that a bit. Select layer 1 again and line it up next to it. Okay, brilliant. That looks good. Let's just change the text color and the panel color. We want it to be completely transparent. So I selected the panel on the left. I'm going to the color under image, selected white, and just bring that alpha channel. This is the transparency color, okay, the transparency level, and bring that all the way to the left to 0. And let's select all of the text fields. And there's a color in here as well, somewhere over here. Okay, so color, that's black, hard to see. Let's make that yellow. And let's see what that looks like if we press play. Okay, cool, that looks good. That just needs to be moved up a bit. And that looks a lot better. Just remember to save. I just realized my label is wrong here. So for player, let's rename these firstly. So this will be player 2 score label and player 2 score text. Good, and then on label, go to inspector and change that to player 2. Okay, now let's add the logic for the scoring. I went and clicked on walls, player 2 goal, the column on the right. I've renamed it to player 2 goal, and I did the same for the one on the left. I renamed that to player 1 goal. Let's add a component, script machine, and here's the idea. So when the ball hits any of these columns, and I call them goals, then we are going to add a point to the opposing player. So this here is player 1's goal, so we're going to check, okay, if the player 1's goal has been hit by the ball, then we are going to add a point to player 2's goals and vice versa. So how do we do that? Player 1 goal, I want to add script machine, and I created new. Go to vscripts and call that goal. I made one earlier when I was testing, so just going to replace that. Okay, so we do not need start and update. What we need is on collision. On collision, enter. Okay, so what will happen is this will be triggered when something hits whatever the script is on. In this case, the goal. Okay, so what I need to do is check if the... Do I actually need to check what's colliding? We can safely assume that if something collided with it, it is going to be the ball. There's nothing else that can actually move and hit this thing. So that is absolutely fine. And I'm going to create something called a score manager as well. And that will keep track of the actual score. So what this will do is just trigger an event. Just having a look at everything here, the collider info. I might need the name of this object and pass it through to the event. So yes, okay, so what we're going to do here is search for custom event, trigger custom event. And look, this does not work like your typical C# event. This kind of works more like a method call. So you need to know where the handler for this event is. So Before we carry on with this, I'm going to create another game object and create empty, and I'm going to call this score manager. And that will be our game object that's going to handle this custom event. Okay, so before I go into score manager, we can just create a variable here. So object variable, I need to call you score manager, which will be of type game object. And I'm going to drag the score manager in there and drag this variable into our script. So let's connect the output node of this to where that self is. And this is the name of our event, and I'm going to call it handle update score. Or no, that's a bad name. Let's say handle goal scored. So in a typical event handling system, you can have multiple subscribers to this event, and the object that raises the event will not know who the subscribers are. It will just know, okay, there's a bunch of subscribers and they will be responsible for registering themselves with whoever's raising the event. But in this case, this object is actually responsible for knowing who's handling this event, and in this case it's the score manager. So that's why I say it's more like a typical method call almost, but you are using a string to actually call it. So yeah, I don't quite like this, but yeah, I don't think there's a better way to do this using visual scripting. So we'll leave it at that. And what we need to know, or what the score manager will need to know, is whether it's the player 1's goal or player 2's goal. So for that, we're going to just pass in the name of this object. And to do that, let's just right click here. I'm going to drag this down, right click, add unit, and search for game object. And we want get name from here. Get name. There we go. And connect the output node to. Oh, whoops! We need to actually add an argument. So we'll add an argument of 1, and for that, and you'll see how that works in a second when I get to the score manager. So we'll hook up this get name to argument 1. So basically, in our score manager, we're gonna listen to this event and then handle it, whatever argument is being passed in. In this case, just the name of this game object. So if this script is attached to player 1 goal, it's going to pass in player 1 goal to there, because our object's name is player 1 goal. When we attach it to player 2 goal, that's going to pass in player 2 goal, because that's the name of that object. And I think we are done with this. So let's check score manager, how this works. We're going to add a component script machine and new vscripts, and I'll call this score manager. So this will be responsible for increasing the score for each player and keeping track of it. So firstly, we need variables here. So let's see, how's this going to work. Let's just create object variables. I'll call this player 1 score of type integer. 0 is fine for that, and player 2 score also of type integer. And that is fine. We can get rid of start and update. So here's where this is going to be a bit different. We are going to listen for an event. So search for custom event and select that, and we are going to name it exactly what we had for. I didn't copy it. Over here we called it handle goals scored. So I'm going back to my score manager and I'm going to call this handle goal scored. So when player 1 goal is triggered, when this collision is triggered, it is going to trigger this handle goal scored on the score manager. So on score manager, it comes here to handle goal scored and proceeds as normal. So what I'm going to do is add a debug.log here. This takes in one argument. And on debug.log, I'm just going to connect that, whatever that argument was. So it's going to just print out player 1 goal, or, well, it's only on the script. So it will just print up player 1 goal if the ball hits this. So let's see if that works. Let's go to our console. And it printed out player 1 goal. Brilliant. Let's add that script to player 2 goal. So we've got player 1 goal. Fine. I'm going to copy variables. Copy component. Go to player 2 goal. Just click on any of these. So you'll see these little dots next to each component. Just click on the last one, which is the collider in this case. I don't think you can do this on the material. It doesn't have... Yeah, it doesn't have a paste component for some reason. But if I go to the collider here, I can select paste component as new, which will add in that score manager variable. Going back to player 1 goal and copying the script machine, copy component, and paste as new. If I press play, now I should see player 2 goal. Okay, so player 1 goal is there, player 2 goal should print now. Okay, great. Let's go back to our score manager and update this. So we created a player 1 and player 2 score, so we need to update that depending on whether we have player 1 goal or player 2 goal, right? So let's delete this debug.log. And we are going to change the flow depending on whether we have player 1 goal or player 2 goal passed in as this argument. So I need equals string that equals the one with A and B, and here I'm putting in player 1 goal, and if whatever we get in is the same as player 1 goal, we're going to connect that. Then its value will be true, otherwise it will be false. If it's true, we are going to add one. I'm just going to click on add unit and click on select add. Okay, there we go. Okay, so this is adding and we need an input and output. Okay, so yes, we need two values to add together. Select A and search for, just drag it out and search for player 2 and get player 2 score, and for B drag that out, click and select integer literal, and we're going to add 1 to it. So that will increase our score by 1 every time. Now we are ready to set the player 2 score. So what we need to do is from the true output, just drag that and search for math dot set player 2. Set player 2 score. Okay, I'm gonna save that. And then the output for that. Okay, so we're setting a variable, we're setting player 2 score, and that needs to be the sum of the existing player 2 score, and we're adding 1. Connect that output to that. And once we've set the player 2 score, we need to set the UI component. So what we need to do, I'm just going to remove these because I did these earlier. Okay, so we need the player 1 score text and player 2 score text variables so that we can access them from the script. And the way we do that, we will add a variable here. I'm just going to call it player 1 score text and of type text. And we can drag this down, so that goes over there. And we are going to create one for player 2 score text as well, and drag down player 2 score text. Okay, so we need to set the text value of these components. So of those text fields, we need to set the text value. Oops. Back to score manager. So on this output node, I'm just going to zoom in. Search for set text. And you want this text.setText. Now you will see here our objects for score is of type integer, and we needed it to be in integer because we are doing some math on them. Okay, simple math, we're just adding one value, or 1 to the score every single time we score a goal. But this text requires a string value, so we need to convert that integer value to a string. And to do that, we just need to drag this output node, which is the value of that score, and we are searching for integer to string. Let's just break that connection. We need these connected like so, and then the converted integer string value is this. Okay, now the set text needs to know what is being set, which text value, so we need that there. So I just dragged that variable across. One score text, connected it here to the text component, and okay, this should work. Let's expand that. And okay, great, that worked, but for the wrong player. Because we touching the player 1 goal, but the player 2 score, player 2's text must increment. Cool. That worked fine. Now we need to handle the case for player 1. Okay, let's neaten this up a bit. So we can create 2 super units here that I can see. The first one is to add. Let's just call it increment score. I'm going to add unit and search for super unit. Let's go in there and call this increment score. And this is going to take, okay, let's trigger input. Just going to call it increment. And then that just takes in, creates a flow output. And data inputs, click on add, and we want just score of type integer. Great. Okay, so we are in increment score. Remember this breadcrumb thing on the top here. Going back to score manager. Okay, so we just need score, and we need to output the result. So input is score, output. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Data outputs. And I'm just going to call that results of type integer. Great. Go back to score manager. I'm going to copy this. Back into my increment. And we don't need a get variable. We're going to delete that. We are going to do this score. And that goes to result. Okay, let's go back to our score manager. So I can remove these, break this. Score that we are setting is what, player 2 score. And that result will go here. And I need an output, so trigger output. Just gonna call it completed. Hide label, we don't need that. Doesn't really make sense. Let's go back to score manager, and now we can connect that here. Okay, let's see if it actually still works. Something broke. Let's go into our super unit. Okay, so we need a flow from here to here. And there we go. That is working fine. Great. Okay, so that's our one super unit done for adding. Let's go back. Score manager. And we need one for setting the UI text. I'm going to copy this so long. So we need two inputs, player 2 score, player 2 score text. Let's create our unit. Subunit. Call this update UI score text. We need a trigger input. Don't know if we need a name for that. Looks like we do. I'm just gonna call it update. Okay, there we go. And trigger output. I don't think we need an output for this, but we will see. Data input. So we needed two things. I'm going to paste what I copied there. Okay, so we need player 2 score, which is of type integer, and then we need the actual text field. So data inputs. I'm just gonna call this player score, because remember we are going to be using it for player 1 and player 2, and this is of type integer. Another one, I'm going to call it player score text of type text. Okay, great. So I can connect this flow over here. Player score will connect with player 2 score over here. Which it's not letting me. Ooh, the set variable belongs outside. So that set variable belongs here. I'm just going to leave it there. Don't need a set variable there. I'm going to delete that, connect that. Integer to string, we want that connected. That's our player score. And our player score text, this will connect here. I can get rid of this get variable there. And that should do it. Let's go back to score manager. I'm going to delete that. Whoops. That super unit still needs to be there. Player score. And this is, we're getting player to score text. Connecting that together. Okay, that looks so much better. Let's save that. Press play. And hopefully this works. Okay, great. That is still working. Okay, so now, and there's still quite a bit here, but it's fine. It's better than what it was before. I'm going to duplicate this bit. Move this down and connect my false here. So we want to increment player 1 score over here. This becomes player 1 score, and this becomes player 1 score text. Now it should display the score properly for both. Okay, great, it's updating both. Perfect. That's our scoring system done. You'll see our labels aren't really scaling properly to different resolution. I'll fix that later. But for now, I think that's enough for one video. We got the scoring system done, and oh wait, I still need to do the C sharp bit. Okay, on to C sharp. I'm going to copy this canvas and go to assets, scenes, C sharp scene, and just paste it in. So that is our heads up display. Good, and that's fine. Okay, so player 1 bolds. Let's rename that to player 2 goal. Player 1 goal. Great. Okay, so we need a C sharp script for this. And let's call this just gonna call it goal. Open it up. Firstly, I just want to check my ball. Okay, so we've got a collider on there, which is perfect. Okay, so we do not need start and update. We just need to check if anyone scored. Okay, so on collision enter is what we're looking for. If you start typing, it will bring up a list of methods that you can autocomplete with. Okay, and remember, when writing code, you need to be in between these curly brackets of your method. And I'm going to check. Yeah. Game object name dot equals player 1 goal. Remember, we're using the script on both goals, so we need to see which one we are actually dealing with before we can decide what to do and else. So I like just filling out my outline of my if and else first, and in here I'm going to create a score. So private int player 1 score and player 2 score, and of course we need our text as well. So we are going to set that from Unity public text. This is a UI text, so we need to import that using Unity engine.ui. And player 1 score text. So this is essentially the same as what we were doing with the visual scripting, but I think this is going to be a lot easier. So if we hit player 1 goal, then player 2 score should increment. And that's nice and easy. We just say plus plus. That's a nice shortcut. The long way of doing it would be to say player 2 score equals player 2 score plus 1. So taking the existing score and adding 1 to it. But we have this nice compact way of doing it, and we will do the same thing here. Except this will be for player 1 score. And then setting the text, all we need to do is player 1 or player 2 score text dot text equals player 2 score, and a quick easy way to convert this to a string, because this also needs a string and this is an integer. Just do a plus and empty string. That will convert it for you. I'm going to copy and paste this here, but of course this needs to be player 1 score text equals player 1 score text, or player 1 score plus empty string. Add a typo there. Go back to Unity. I'm going to select both of these and add in goal. This is not the most efficient way of doing it. Because now we're setting it manually on both of these. You know what, a better way to do this, we've got these just named as player 1 score text and player 2 score text, so we can look this up in code. Let's do that instead. And for that we'll put the start method back in. And I'm going to do player 1 score text equals game object dot find, and here you can find a game object with a name. And I want player 1 score text dot get component text. Okay, great. Player 2 score text equals player 2 score text. Remember, this game object of find returns a game object, and we want the text component of there. And then we can just make these private, since we won't be setting them from Unity anymore. And let's see what happens. What am I missing? Got my colliders on. Got my goal script on. Let's It's not incrementing the score. Oh, something's gone wrong. I don't think it's finding this. Let's just see what I'm missing. Oh, it's case sensitive, so I've got a lowercase p there. That should be a capital letter. Capital. So something to watch out for is using this game object of find. If you rename anything, say I rename this to something else, then your code's gonna break. So you have to make sure that you rename it here and you rename it in your code wherever you're referencing that. So that's not exactly the safest way to do it. But then again, there's not many options. You can either set it through Unity, which then, yeah, can create a lot of dependencies between all your objects that needs to be fulfilled in Unity itself, or you can just look it up like this. Or you could look an object up by label as well, which might be better. It's probably the best way, since your labels won't change often, and that is your labels here. Tags, actually, not labels. Okay, so this should work now. Good. See, our score is incrementing on both sides. Great. Okay, so this is a no-brainer. You can see that C# is clearly so much easier to get this right. And it's just so much cleaner as well. Okay, so what's left to do? We can add a start and end, or just a start menu. I think we're going to keep this quite simple. I'll just show you guys how to add in the start menu and hook that up with visual scripting and C#. And until the next lesson, enjoy.